for coming on the podcast, Z. Super excited to have you here. Initially ran into you in Spain at the Avalanche conference, and we started debating, I think it was Celestia and just scaling techniques. And so really excited to have the conversation and chat with you.
Yeah, man. Good talking again. I feel like that was so long ago now. But yeah, it was cool. That was a good conference. I'll hopefully go back this year.
Yeah, no, it was a cool conference. I got convinced to go by a friend and really enjoyed it. Did you get to go to very many conferences last year, or are you kind of more of a homebody?
Dude, like before last year, I'm like typically usually a homebody. So I don't travel all that much. But last year is like, I wanted to meet a lot more crypto people in person because like I've been like following crypto forever, but really the only crypto events I had done over like the past 5 years was like whenever they did, what's it called? Consensus, I think in New York. So like whenever that would happen, I would like go there because like it's right there in New York, but I never went to like the actual conference. I would just see like who's in the city or whatever. But last year I wanted like, let me be more active and like try and meet people. And the AVAX conference was actually my first one like ever. But actually my first time in Europe too. But it was funny because it was my first time being at a crypto event after I had like a ton of followers, like out of nowhere. Cause like I like before I had like 3 to 5K, like just over the years. And like right before the AVAX conference, I had like 100K. So like I walked to the conference and like I'm walking through the events and stuff and everybody like recognized me like, oh, you're Ansem. Oh, you're Ansem. It was weird. It was funny. Other than that, I did Bitcoin and Solana.
Miami.
Yeah, Bitcoin Miami and the Solana hackathon. That was cool. And then I did Lisbon. Yeah, Lisbon.
That's awesome. No, I went to a couple as well. I think probably the similar ones. Last year went to Breakpoint and then Bitcoin Miami, and now kind of reside in Miami as a full-time crypto degen. I like the sunshine too much, so I decided to stay. But no, I'm curious. Like, so my co-founder is super good at Twitter, but I'm not. Like, can you like share like what are the Twitter secrets to kind of getting a bigger following, or like how was that? Especially like after growing the following, was it weird?
It was weird, dude. Because I mean, I didn't have a game plan for like, oh, let me grow my Twitter. Like, I'm not one of those people who is like trying to growth hack their social media accounts, which a lot of people are like really good at and do. But I wasn't doing that. For me, literally, all I was doing was just like tweeting from like my personal Twitter and also my crypto Twitter at the same time. So like there was always an overlap there for me. Most people on crypto Twitter are like their anon accounts and they only tweet about crypto. But for me, it was like my actual Twitter account that I had in college. So it was like I tweet about all my life stuff and then tweet charts in between and like tweet what I'm looking at. It was just like a mix of all of that. And I think people saw I was like, this is like an actual person. There's not like actual people online in crypto like that common. And then like, but the thing that got me a ton of followers, I think, was just posting charts and like my thoughts on the market. Cause when markets were going crazy, like late 2020, 2021, it's like everybody was always looking for like, oh, what's the next trade going to be? Like, what are people looking at now? Like, where are all the traders? And I was doing a lot of that, like posting trades, like posting charts, like what I think is going to happen next. And that's like how I ended up getting a lot of followers.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, last year was, I mean, crazy year. But maybe before we kind of jump into, I want to kind of hear about like your thoughts on the past bull market. But before we jump into that, could you just give like a brief background on like how you got into crypto and got into tech? I feel like everybody kind of approaches it from a different angle and has a different story. So I'm curious.
Yeah, stories are always cool. I'm not one of the people who was like super early in crypto. Like I didn't have Bitcoin like 2013, 2014, and then like lost it on a hard drive or something like that. I wasn't that one of those guys. But I actually had a class, like an emerging technologies class. I went to Georgia Tech and like I was studying computer science. My minor was in business. And for like one of my courses, the focus was on emerging technologies. And then one of the classes was on Bitcoin. And my like professor at the time was like really big on it and told us what it was, like what the technology underneath of it, like why it was important. And I was like 2016. Honestly, like a lot of us and like my friends, we like paid attention, but none of us were like, oh, we're going to go buy a ton of Bitcoin right now. Like we need to have a lot of it. So that didn't really happen. And then when I graduated the next year, I actually had a mentor at the job I was working at, so in software engineering, and he was like a big crypto guy. So that's like when I really got into crypto. Was like on Bittrex. I think I put out there trading like Monaco and like all those old coins, like Library Coin. I don't know if you remember those, but like all that stuff. And I like followed Kobe and all those guys like Carpe Noctem, like Ledger Status. I was just like learning trading, like learning what crypto was, like why it's important and alts. And like, that's when I really figured out the cycle of like Bitcoin, then alts, Bitcoin, alts, and just like how like money flows in the market. And that was like invaluable to have like that knowledge, like to this next bull market. But yeah, that's how I got started.
Pretty wild. So, I mean, studying like computer science is way different than trading. So what got you in the trading aspect?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in like finance and like CS. It's like in high school, my favorite class was physics. So I was always like, my like counselor told me, oh, you need to do engineering. It's like, oh, I like picked electrical engineering. And then I went to like some electrical engineering, like we had some trips like my freshman year. Like before my freshman year, but I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to be in a factory, like doing all this. And then I switched to computer science because I thought it was dope. But I've always been interested in like that intersection of like tech and finance and just like trying to figure out where that like aligns for me. Like I worked at a bank previously, and it's always been like interested in that area. But yeah, it is very different. It's like two different brains, kind of. People always say computer science people are usually not good traders. So
yeah, no, it's I mean, when I was in the Bay Area and I mean, worked in product, and so was pretty close with a lot of engineers, and I did not meet one that was good at trading. So I think you have a rare skill set. But yeah, what kind of like bridging though that from like going into like this past bull market, like what were some of the things or like biggest things that you learned from like this past year? I think it's always kind of, there's always a couple of surprises, but I'm curious, like from your perspective, either on the trading or even on scaling. Yeah. What are some of like your biggest learnings?
Like in the transition from bull to bear?
Yeah, I mean, just like what I mean, maybe just like a summary of like kind of 2021 and like the craziness of it, or like, I mean, was there anything that caught you like off guard with like, I mean, I think you were pretty early into like Solana, a lot of like the layer one trades. Like, I guess like, how did you like either predict some of those things? Did it like play out kind of like you thought? I'm curious.
Yeah, what was my thought process? So yeah, I was like late to DeFi in like 2020. Probably like mid 2020 is when I started paying attention to crypto like closely. Like I've been paying attention during the like bear market of 2018, 2019. But my daughter was actually born like October 2019. So like those first few months, I was not looking at markets really at all. And then I saw people talking about DeFi, and I was looking at the charts, and I looked at Aave, and it was like 200x or whatever crazy like run up that did. But for me, I was like, oh, I've seen these cycles like before. I'm assuming it's going to be similar to 2017, 2018. So I was looking at ETH, looking at DeFi stuff. I saw DeFi run up was crazy. But Bitcoin hadn't moved yet. So Bitcoin was still at like 9, 10K and was just like trading sideways. And all of the DeFi people who are like completely new to crypto, all in on Uniswap, like that's all that they knew. I would ask them like, is anybody buying Bitcoin? Like, is anybody looking at Bitcoin? And nobody was talking or even thinking about Bitcoin really. So I was like, okay, I know the money, like of all the people, like funds and people, crypto native people, I know they're going to eventually rotate back into Bitcoin. So that was like my first really like main trade. I was like, Bitcoin's at least going to go back to all time high. I don't know how high it's going to go after that, but I know it's at least going to go to 20K. And I was like, what I was expecting. So that was like my first main trade. And then like, I don't know, was long, like I wanted to get like really long into the all-time high break, and that was like late 2020. And then like after that, I was thinking through like which alts I think are gonna do well. Cause like you get that first like major run up in Bitcoin, and even if it like tops and chops around for a bit, you know you're gonna get some alts to do well afterwards. So I was tracking like altcoins and trying to catch up on what I missed in DeFi, like during DeFi summer. And like basically that entire Q4 of 2020 when Bitcoin was ripping, alts were just like getting crushed in Bitcoin terms. So like the USD pairs were trading sideways. When you have like that accumulation, sideways accumulation, if you have like a main asset like Bitcoin and Ethereum doing well, it's likely that those will break out instead of like break down if money rotates back into like the lower market cap stuff. So that's why I was looking at DeFi, like Aave, Uniswap. And around that time is actually when I was looking at Solana too, like early 2021. I think I first bought it like literally first day of 2021. But my thought process around like which DeFi like tokens were going to do well, I was like, there's these basket at the top, like the blue chip DeFi ones that have already done well. And I'm assuming they're going to do like well again. And then it's like, if Ethereum fees are like too high for it to be like prohibitive for people to use, because it was like people were kind of talking about that like a little bit towards the end of the year. Yeah. But like not in a way that everybody was like, oh, what's the trade? Like, what's the trade because of this? And nobody's really thinking of it in like that way, because there wasn't like, there was nothing else for people to be using that was that active.
At that point in time, it was almost like if you use any other chain, you were like committing a sin. I remember like with DeFi summer, the gas fees started getting high, but it wasn't really until like the beginning of 2021 when NFTs started popping off that it was like, holy shit, these are actually like expensive. I think it was good for NFTs in retrospect. It kind of set a floor for NFTs just because you didn't want to rug yourself below gas price. But yeah, the narratives definitely changed very quickly.
Yeah, no, extremely fast. Because like the thing is in crypto, it's like if price confirms like what you're thinking, it's like the narrative suddenly becomes so much stronger, like just to everybody, not even to like people who are actually funding this stuff early stage. So yeah, momentum is huge in crypto. But yeah, that's kind of when I started looking at Solana.
And were you, I mean, even outside of Solana, like, I mean, you obviously have a technical background. Are you primarily looking at these charts? Or are you kind of trying, like, reading these different white papers? Like, I'm just curious, like, how you're so early to these different kind of movements even before they happen.
Well, yeah, I do read, like, through the white papers, charts as well. Like, you can set up stuff like locally and like play around with all like the dev environments and stuff. Like the teams that have really good, what's the word? Like really good, like docs around like all their information. You can tell like those are really solid. So it kind of a mixture of both, but it has to be confirmed by the charts. Like you can be right on the fundamental side and be very wrong technically for like an extended period of time. Like you could have been, oh, I know Solana is like this great tech for all of what year was that? Like 2020. And it was just like token was just going down. So it's like you still need that confirmation of like trends. So it's a combination of like the developer side and also the trader side. But yeah, that's kind of how I think through stuff. I mean, like, I guess it's a combination.
Nice. No, it's fascinating. I mean, I definitely come from a much more technical background and kind of the product point of view. And so I'm always envious of kind of the traders that can like marry those two skills, because it is unique and it's not easy.
Dude, it's hard, man. And it's like, you can be an expert at both of those things. Like you can be like good at both of them, but it's really, really hard to be like an expert at both. So I'm trying to find that balance between that. I'm kind of shifted more to like the developer researcher side recently. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe on like the research side, I mean, you recently joined as head of research. And Could you share, I mean, some of the things that you're kind of excited for in like 2023, or even things that like in the bull market that kind of caught your eye that you're like still excited by?
Yeah. So recently just joined the Chernin Group as head of research. So Chernin is kind of like a venture capital fund. TCG Crypto is like the crypto focused fund out of like the larger TCG. So TCG is a growth fund, consumer focused fund. We like did a lot of early stage stuff like Barstool, like Food 52, like Golden Auctions, a bunch of stuff where it's like looking at changes in consumer trends and like broadcast media and how that works in like a digitally focused and internet like focused age, which is like how things have evolved. So then crypto is like obviously the key of like intersection of all of those things. So what at 2023, some of the stuff we're looking at TCG, we're looking at mobile focused applications. So we think those are going to be huge. Like just generally people spend a ton of time on their phones. And if you're ever looking at like what you think the trends are going to be in like the next decade, you want to look at like what younger people are doing now. Younger people are on their phones all the time, like 24/7. And I think like the UX in crypto is kind of like lacking on that side. That's one of the reasons I like Solana a ton, just because of how they're thinking through like Solana Mobile and like the Solana Mobile stack. So we'll see how that plays out. Some other stuff like, go ahead.
No, it is crazy just how many people actually use, I mean, their primary device to like interact with the internet is through their mobile device. And it kind of sucks today that, I mean, Apple and Android really gate and the kind of crypto experience. I just did a podcast with Steven, an engineer from the Solana team for SMS and Saga. And I mean, the fact that one, they just don't really want like crypto native apps, and then two, like still take that like 30% or like 15% haircut is insane.
Yeah, dude. It's like, I know, what is it? What is that law that like Apple passed? It's like really prohibitive with the stuff on their store, or like something recently that they passed. Sorry,
go ahead.
But yeah, I know that's why they're like focused on like Android, because like gives you, it's like more open source, like control and stuff.
It's fascinating. I mean, but I definitely echo your sentiments. I mean, the mobile stuff is going to be amazing. And I really hope like those native applications for crypto can be like mobile first. It's definitely will be something to watch.
We're going to see, man. Yeah. What's some other stuff? Like some other stuff we're looking at. So like new forms of media. So I know it's like been huge this year. I feel like the people really looking closely at like raw blockchain data and what you can pull out from that and like the conclusions you can draw. So like a lot of the reporting, I feel like it's kind of like people were like reporting directly versus like outside looking in. And I feel like if you know this data intimately well, you just have like a huge knowledge advantage over everybody else, whether that be trading or just like information. Like there's a barrier there. So what we're thinking through is like, how do you like transform that into actual like media companies and like media environments, like social media. So how do people like interact like directly on chain? And like, how does that work? And what does that look like moving forward? It's like another thing we're looking at. And like the last major thing is kind of like infrastructure stuff. So I know you're big on this, like the next gen blockchains. So it's like, if we are looking at these applications, they're going to onboard like the next 100 million people into crypto. What infrastructure do these applications like require to be able to run effectively and like serve consumers? So it's like, what does that look like? Like what execution layer, like the competition at that level, like is it roll up specific stuff? Is it app chains? So just thinking through all of those different ideas and like that also. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like an ETH maxi, and I think a lot of it just because it was like the narrative at the time, like prior to kind of once ETH really took off with like adoption and NFTs, like I was so excited, like watching DeFi Summer and like all the applications and the food tokens. It was a wild time.
Yeah.
But I mean, just seeing, I paid like $1,000 for a Uniswap, and I think I was longing something and had to get out of it using Uniswap. And it was just a mess at the time because everybody was trying to like close their position. But like that trade was like $1,000 for a single trade. And I was like, oh, like even though like I could pay it, like it pained me to do so. And so that's when I started looking at different ecosystems and just kind of like went down the rabbit hole. But yeah, I think on the infrastructure side, just getting more users. I know you are a pretty prolific writer, and one of the things that you wanted to see as well as users. So on the infrastructure side, are there anything like particular that like you were looking for or like excited by? You named a couple with like different like execution layers and app chains, but I'm just curious.
Well, personally, I'm like a big Cosmos guy. That's kind of like where I landed, kind of like towards the end of like the bull market. I was kind of thinking through like what ecosystems are kind of like not looked at as closely, but like still have really strong like technical like tech stacks. And I was like, Cosmos is that essentially. I think it's interesting because like these, like the layer ones, it's much easier to build community around because it's literally just like one chain. Like Ethereum is like we're rollups that settle on Ethereum. Solana's like we're Solana, like everything runs on us. We're composable applications. So I think like with layer ones, it's a lot easier to like garner attention like around like your chain. Whereas Cosmos is like the complete opposite. It's like everybody's kind of focused on their own individual thing because that's how it's designed. Like it's app chains individually that all communicate with each other via like IBC, which is like the generalized messaging system. So I do think that like the Cosmos SDK and like Cosmosm is going to blow up like a lot this year. There's a ton of applications building that I think are going to do well. It's just like, how do you cultivate that community? I think like we saw it with like Luna, which obviously did not turn out well, unfortunately. But like the way that they did that from like a business side, not like the tech side, unfortunately, it's just like interesting how like teams are going to go about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's been interesting just like talking with more engineers on the podcast and kind of asking them like what other ecosystems they've been excited about. And Cosmos like continuously comes up as like one that they're super interested in. And so I've been trying to talk with more Cosmos engineers as well. But the project, like to me, I definitely agree with like the general purpose layer ones. A lot of people just like rally around that like specific community, which makes it great. But then like for like the applications that actually need like a more custom tailored stack, the Cosmos SDK is great for that, but like you lose the community aspect because like there's not as many people shilling it. And so what I've been like super interested in, this is honestly like where I thought it was going to go, was like sector specific. So like having like a DeFi ecosystem, like NFT ecosystem or gaming ecosystem. And like, so you can still keep the composability aspect, and like also like have like a larger community. And I found that recently with Say. They're doing like DeFi focused. And so I've been super excited, did a podcast with him recently, and I'm excited about more of those type of ecosystems popping up in Cosmos.
Yeah, I agree for sure. People are still trying to find like the balance. Like, does it need to be one application or like you said, like sector specific and kind of like what the limits are? So I think it's definitely true. Like that people are finding what that balance is. I like them too. Some of those guys are in NYC. They're cool.
Is there a big crypto community in New York?
I think like there actually is like decently large, and I like was not aware of it prior to like last year really, but I've been like more active in the community now and meeting people. Because previously it was like I would do crypto online and then offline with like my friends from school, like college and like other work stuff. But now that I work in crypto, it's like that's everything that I do. So yeah, it is cool to see people still like rallying around and coming to events. Even like Lisbon, like last year when prices were down, like 90%, there was still a ton of people at that conference. And they were like, nobody was really talking about how much prices were down. So it's cool to see like there's a sticky community in crypto now. It's like relatively large.
Yeah, no, it is cool to see the builders. I mean, after 2018, like I mean, 2017 was just ICOs, and 2018 there was actually no products. And so now it at least feels much better because there's actually products that you can use. There's not a bunch of users per se compared to like the Web2 companies, but the community is definitely stronger. And so it's cool to see that New York's kind of built that out.
Yeah, I need to get back to Miami though. I don't know. It's too cold here. That's the only issue.
Let me know. Miami is beautiful. I love it just because, I mean, we're on the computer so much throughout the day and like kind of glued to our screens that when I don't have to be on my computer, I want to step out and just be nice and kind of close to the beach and get some sunshine.
Yeah, I feel you on that.
But on the app chain kind of like thesis or like general purpose, is there anything that like you are like wanting to like, or like actively looking for, or like things that get you excited kind of, or like any charts that you're like looking for that you're like, okay, this like, I'm interested in this tech, the chart kind of confirms this, and it's something that I'm excited to watch like for the rest of the year? Or is everything just down only right now?
That's a good question. A ton of stuff is down only. Actually, like I've been looking at, I think some charts look good right now. I feel like I'm reverting, might revert back to like my trader stage. But there's like a ton of projects that have been able to onboard like people, and you kind of like see when you see like the trends in like user activity and like user growth also align with like a technical chart that like looks good. I think one of those charts is actually Optimism. So, like Optimism has recently been doing well. And I think it's surprised a lot of people because like they have a huge FTV. People are like, this token is worthless. Like why is the FTV so big? But I think that the way they're thinking about like modularity, so like their OP stack that they're working on, essentially they want to create like an SDK for people to be able to build rollups, and you can like switch out like whether you're using like which data availability layer you're using, like which settlement layer you're using, be able to customize essentially like all of that like under the hood, like at launch, which I think is really dope. And they also have done like a really good job of doing like their incentive program. So it's like they do, I think like retroactive funding, I think it's called. Essentially, like if you're a builder on Optimism and you like build an application that ends up attracting a lot of users, they like will choose in the future to give you tokens instead of like giving people tokens up front, just airdropping all of them. So that's like part of the reason why their FDV is so high. It's like that's their go-to-market plan. And it's like, it's worked out pretty well. And it's like it's one of the charts that doesn't have bag holders because it's a newer chart.
Yeah, so, that's funny.
Yeah,
no, it's the layer twos have definitely been like definitely gaining some steam. I mean, with even Polygon kind of onboarding a lot of different people in the ecosystem. Is there like a particular layer two that you're like the most excited about, or like maybe even like the layer two ecosystem more broadly?
Let me think. I think like I want to say Fuel's probably like the one I'm most excited about. The guy John Adler is super smart. Their team is really cool. But the way I'm thinking through like that trade, the layer two trade, is I think it's going to be similar, kind of like to the layer one trade, like early last year, and comparable in a way that like people are going to be looking for which layer two do they think is going to win, like which layer two is going to be the best layer two. So like Optimism right now has a lot of attention, but I think like Arbitrum when they launch is also going to get a lot of attention. Like when they launch their token, I think like that attention is going to shift there. And then Fuel, I'm assuming. Like I think they're launching token also, but I think they're going to be like after Arbitrum. So I think that L2 rotation is going to happen. That's one of the things I think is going to happen this year. But Fuel specifically, I really like a lot. Like their Swaylang, I think it's like a Rust domain specific language. So they're building out all of like the dev tooling alongside while they're building like their layer two. And they've kind of implemented a ton of like EIPs that like Ethereum devs have not been able to implement in their like Fuel VM, which is a separate VM from the EVM. It's parallelizable. And like they kind of do some different things there to make it more efficient.
I do like Fuel as well. I think, I mean, I'm bullish of the virtual machines that do parallel processing.
I feel like it's a necessity, dude. Like if I feel like it's necessary for like whichever one's gonna win out. Honestly.
To me, it just makes a lot more sense. Like, because the modern computers just have more cores, and if you have parallel processing, you can take advantage of those cores. If you don't have parallel processing, you're kind of stuck. But
yeah,
it's cool that the Fuel team is doing that. But I'm curious, like, if over the long term, any of the other layer 2s will implement like parallel processing as well.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like it's the big conversation this year for like layer 2 is like which ones are, what is they call EVM equivalent, EVM compatible, and then which ones are building their like a separate VM. So I think Starkware's like building out Cairo, right? Cairo and like their VM. And then it's like Fuel, and then it's like Arbitrum and Optimism are like more on the EVM side. So that's like a big competition. I think that's like one of the coolest discussions that we're going to see.
It will be a good battle. And then like all the data availability layers, like that's super interesting to me as well. And like some people have like, I think it was Arbitrum. They're building their own custom data availability layer, Polygon as well, just to keep like transaction costs relatively cheap for settlement.
Yeah, I think Arbitrum Nova, I want to say it's called.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. The whole scaling debate, like to me, is like super interesting and kind of following along with it. But yeah, the layer 2s like will definitely be interesting to watch this year.
Bro, it's cool because like the people who are writing the actual like academic papers that define all of these terms are like the people who are arguing with each other on Twitter about like which solution is better. So it's cool that we're like at the front lines. I don't think there's really any industry where you get to talk literally to the people who are writing like the foundational stuff for the industry. So that's really dope. One of the reasons I like crypto so much.
I fully agree. I mean, Twitter is too addicting, to be honest. I'm on it all the time. So, but no, I mean, I got into, crypto in 2017 and really kind of fell down the rabbit hole through Reddit first. And I did like Reddit, but then there's a lot of normies. And so you kind of have to go through like a bunch of comments to find like who's kind of making good points. But Twitter, like you can actually find the people, like you said, that like are actually writing this stuff and talk with them directly, and it's just a way better experience.
Yeah, the access that we have is crazy. It's way better. I agree.
Yeah, it's so on the layer 2 side, kind of bullish layer 2s, bullish different app chains and like the Cosmos ecosystem. Are there any other like L1s that you're like focused on, or any like interesting dApps that you've been following?
I still like Solana a ton. I think like the improvements,
even after kind of FTX and the blow up.
Yeah, even after FTX and the blow up. It's like, I honestly like more, dude, because like I feel like as a chain, like Anatoly and their like dev team has done a ton, like implementing fixes to address all the issues that they've had, like congestion, and like the chain downtime, like the few times it has gone down. They've implemented a ton of stuff, like quick, stick weighted, like quality of service, like the fee markets, like on individual
dynamic
accounts.
Fee markets. Yep.
Yeah, that's like one of the things I actually get pushback on when I say like the app chain thesis is like, oh, well, Solana has like priority fee markets localized to these individual applications. So it's like if you have a ton of applications running on Solana and like just one application is like driving, like congesting the chain, but that application doesn't affect all the other applications running. And it's like, why do you need an application specific chain if this application doesn't affect all the other apps running on Solana? So that's like one of the good arguments I've had with people. It's like, if localized fee markets work really well, do you need like rollups? Do you need app chains? So it's like, that's another interesting spot.
No, I fully agree. I mean, I think Solana was the first doing like parallelized virtual machine, and then definitely the first with fees per contract. And I've talked with, the SWE team or the Mist and Lab team, and then also the Aptos team, and both I think Aptos wants to implement in the long term fees per contract, but Mistin Lab is going to have fees per contract at launch, and then I think the Fuel team ultimately wants to do fees per contract as well. But I think that like you have to have like a parallelized virtual machine for that to happen. So I'm interested to watch like the single threaded or the EVM chains, and like over time if they like pivot to like parallelized virtual machines and fees per state, because to me it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been saying it for a while. Like the Ethereum people kind of like didn't like me in 2021 because I always was like, "Are y'all sure the EVM is going to be like the long term winner?" Like, yeah, it is. It's like I go back and forth with them. But yeah, no, I agree.
So like maybe jumping to Ethereum, like I mean, I think it was awesome they transitioned to proof of stake, and now they're kind of doing the roll up kind of centric point of view for scaling. What are your thoughts on like ETH going into this new year?
I think ETH is really strong. I think like that transition, you kind of see like how the economics have shifted. It's like, oh shoot, it's been like deflationary. Almost broke my chair. It's been like deflationary a few times like this year. And I think like if we get the sustained activity that we had in the bull market, I think there's a good chance that like it remains deflationary, which is like a really strong narrative for Ethereum. I honestly, the way I look at Ethereum is like it's the safest bet like in crypto. Like they move very slowly, but like when they do like push like all of their upgrades, you can be confident or in thinking that like, yeah, like this is not going to break. Like I feel comfortable using the EVM. Like it doesn't change all that much. And like I can limit kind of like the like technological innovation on like the roll-ups. So it's like I think Ethereum is like one like the safe bet for people in people's minds. I think it's going to do well.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch ETH and all the research that they've put out. But I definitely agree. Now it's kind of the safe bet. In 2018, betting on Ethereum at that point in time was the contrarian thing, and now it's kind of the de facto standard that everybody's voting to win, which doesn't mean like it won't win, but yeah, I'm curious to see like them just transition to these layer twos and how it will work out over the long term.
Yeah, same. I'm very interested in how it plays out. The one thing I don't like about like Ethereum is like that argument around like fees and how fees are like, oh, this is a like we're like the chain is making a ton of revenue because the fees are high. I hated that argument in like 2021 because it's not sustainable. It doesn't make sense. What I like more is like the argument around MEV, and like if you have a ton of activity on the chain, or that be on rollups or like on mainnet, it's like the value that you get from people reorganizing blocks and like all of that, like the MEV from there, whether that's redistributed effectively to users or like in another way. I think that's a more like long-term solution for like how blockchains can like be profitable.
100%. And I think that will be like a good kind of like narrative going into or like for 2023, the MEV conversation. I think we really didn't have like good words to like talk about it in the past bull market, or people just weren't knowledgeable enough. And then once we got all this activity and even DeFi, now it's become a much bigger conversation. And so I know you're a fan of like Jito. Are you a fan of like any other like MEV services?
I honestly need to look closer at like the other ones. I know there's what are the ones on Solana? There's one working. What's the one working with Say? Is it Skip?
I don't know.
It might be. I don't know if it's Skip Protocol or like another one, another Cosmos focused MEV team. Mm-hmm. But I know there's one like working with Say. I think like that's actually a good opportunity. It's kind of like MEV on these alternative like layer one chains or like like app chains, and just like thinking through how that's going to work, because it's going to be the same argument that it is on Ethereum on like all of these other chains that end up doing well. And you kind of like you have Flashbots, which is like the de facto standard, but it's like what other teams are going to focus on that, because it's not the same. It's not going to look the same as it does on Ethereum.
Yeah, no, definitely true. What do you think about perps and decentralized perps?
Well, I think like so in one of the strong, like GMX has been one of the strongest alts, which I kind of did not expect. Like the past summer, I was not like the guy. I was like, yeah, GMX is gonna do better than everything else, and it's like one of the ones that's like done really, really well. I think that the way that they've structured incentives for like traders and like LP providers is really interesting. And it's like in a way that differentiates themselves from like decentralized alternatives. The toughest thing for decentralized perps is how do they provide a platform where people who are trading like large size don't suffer from like these latency issues that they would never have issues with on something like Binance. So it's like, I don't think any platform in like current state has been able to replicate that, which obviously it's like really hard to do. And they're not going to get like to that, like the same level, but it's like, how close can they get to the point where like a lot of people use them other than just like retail who's trading on Uniswap.
Yeah, I really want the latencies to be super low. And I think that was kind of I guess kind of bullish for some layer twos that you get like the soft confirmation latency, or like the high throughput chains and the lower latencies. But yeah, the latencies are definitely an issue.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
Sorry. On the latency stuff, the thing that like just came to mind was like layer threes. Do you have any thoughts around like their layer threes?
It's like, I feel like we just started on layer 2, dude. And I agree. And now we're already on layer 3s. But like for me, like the way I'm thinking through, I need to go deeper on this, but the way I'm thinking through it now is like you're going to have application specific rollups and you're going to have generalized rollups, right? So where layer 3s come in is like when you have these generalized rollups that are usually on Ethereum from what I've seen. And then you have these application specific rollups, which are going to be L3s like for games or whatever else that then like go back on top of like these generalized rollups. But alternatively, you can have literally application specific rollups at the L2 level instead of like at the L3 level. And like there are some teams working on that. Like Dimension in Cosmos is like one of the teams. Dimension and Celestia, like one of the teams, some of the teams in Cosmos, they're kind of like thinking through that. And like from my point of view, the reason that L3s is like a narrative is only because Ethereum was like the de facto L1 that these rollups are getting built on. So it's like if you have a really performant base layer, which Ethereum is not, but if you do have a really performant base layer, then like you can go directly to application specific rollups instead of building these generalized rollups. Because it's like you wouldn't really, I don't think people would like the argument for building a generalized rollup on something like Solana is not as strong as like the argument for building a generalized rollup on something like Ethereum. Yeah. So that's kind of how I've been thinking through it. But I need to go deeper on it, dude.
I agree, though. I mean, I feel like, really the conversation was like shifting from like scaling the L1 to scaling the layer 2 on Ethereum, or using layer 2s to scale Ethereum. And then they're like, oh, surprise, layer 3s. And I'm like, it adds a lot of complexity. And so I've just been surprised by it. But I'm definitely curious to watch it play out.
Yeah, and I think what's the team? I think it's ZK Sync has been the main ones talking about it, right? Like the LPs. Yeah. I'm interested too, man. I don't know how they're gonna sell it to people because I feel like selling rollups was hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Like are the L3s gonna be a completely different like VM and language too? Like are they?
To me, it's just like the more complexities that you add, one from like the software side. Like for developers, but then also like users bridging from like an L2 to an L2 or an L2 to L3, like it's just complex. And so
hard.
I'd rather like, that's why I'm a big fan of like the kind of high throughput systems that try to keep everything on a single shard, just because it's easier for developers and it's easier for users to kind of navigate it. But I think on that front, like Ethereum's very, very good at like telling stories. Why do you think why do you think these other ecosystems are not as good? Just like Ethereum has a bigger community?
Man, I don't know. The Ethereum guys, the .eth guys are incredible with that. That's one thing I will say for sure. Like the narrative, the control of the narrative, they're super like really, really good at that. Their whole like content and how they like produce content and convey it to people is really strong. I don't know. I feel like Solana is like kind of good at it, but like even they're not like as good because like there's not as many people that understand localized fee markets and like what quick is, like what all the upgrades are. It's like no way. Like,
not at all. I mean, I'm continuously impressed by like people that I talk to in the Ethereum community. A little name like the EIP, like and the number, and then they'll be like able to articulate everything. Where like in Solana, like I mean, yeah, localized fees like with Jump and like the Fire Dancer client. Like I think at the Solana Breakpoint event with Fire Dancer, they demoed on like pretty like standard hardware with like good amount of cores. I think like 24 or 32 cores. Solana hardware doing like, or the Fire Dancer client doing 600,000 TPS, and like, but you really don't hear the community like talking about that or really shilling it too much. And so, yeah, Ethereum's they're pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like a time thing because I feel like Ethereum's been around for like much longer. Well, they probably have like what? How many years? Like I
think it launched in 2014 or 15.
So yeah, somewhere around there. So that's kind of like 5-6 year head start on like these other chains. That might be why. Like those are people like that have been reading the EIPs like since they started. So it's like that's definitely like a good reason, I think.
I think the wealth effect happened or helped a lot too. I mean, with everybody getting the opportunity to buy, well, a good amount of people getting the opportunity to buy ETH at like the ICO, and then like a couple of years prior to like all the ICOs happening, and then kind of got the second chance when like ETH went to like 1400 to 80. And now with like Solana and some of these other L1 ecosystems, I mean, Solana went from like 240, 260 to what was it, 8? So like people kind of having a second redemption at that as well. So it will be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting for sure. I've always been like a bit biased to Solana because like I literally bought it like $1.50. So yeah, I've always been. I feel that like that wealth effect is definitely like real.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Like anything particularly on like the NFT side or like gaming front that you're like looking forward to?
Yeah. So I really think I played a game on Solana the other day. It was actually pretty cool. It was a first person shooter. It was like it was mini royals or mini something, mini royal or mini nation or something. It was like really dope. It's like you didn't even because like what I like was just playing like you would play a regular game. So one of the interesting onboarding pieces I think for these games is like, can you play it without a wallet initially, and then like can you like after that be like, oh, if I use a wallet, then I get all these other like in-game upgrades and like I get to track all my like stats and like my wins and losses and like I get like access to different NFTs. I think the go-to market of these games, like how they do that, it's got to be like, it can't be just for crypto native people. I think there's going to be like the games that focus on onboarding everybody, and then there's going to be like on-chain games that specifically target crypto native people. There's like two different like segments, I think. What's some other stuff I'm looking?
And you think primarily that is because like the self-custody and the wallet aspect?
Not really. I just think like people that just don't know anything about crypto, they should like be thinking, I want to play this game because it's a fun game, not because it's a crypto game. And like, I do think there are games that are going to be like specifically tailored to like people who are on chain a lot, and like those will grow in their own way. But then the other side of it is like a different target market. What other games? I
know you were big into, or at least tweeted a little bit about like DFK and I think Axie Infinity as well. Are you like still excited about like play to earn games?
I think
or is that just like a bull cycle thing?
The economies have to be like constructed in like different ways. I think like the bull market valuations were just like way too high. Like the prices that people were paying like up to earn in game were just unsustainable for the average person. And that's why like all of them broke. But it's like, if you have a game that has like a sustainable economy where it's like, you don't need to pay a ton of money to like play up front, but you can like earn from participating, like whether that be through microtransactions or like items that don't cost a ton of, like, I think that can work. Because play to earn games exist outside of crypto games. Like World of Warcraft was like a play to earn game. Like if you played World of Warcraft, that was a play to earn game.
I played a lot of World of Warcraft. I don't play anymore because I would get sucked back in, but I played a lot of World of Warcraft and RuneScape back in my day.
Bro, I played, I have years logged on that game, literally. But like if you were doing all those, like, I forget what they were called, like the tailoring and like the jewel crafting, like all that stuff. If you were like literally grinding, farming, putting hours into the game, like spending in like like hours in game, you like got profit from that because you could like sell yourself on the auction market, and then that had a tangible value in like real life because people would pay for the time spent in game. So I think like in crypto that can happen in the same way, but it's just so much easier to distribute that through like NFTs on like everything on chain and just like through tracking your progress like over time. I don't think anybody's done it like really well yet, but I definitely am still bullish on that.
Yeah, I would love like a World of Warcraft or RuneScape style game with like NFTs. That'd be amazing. But no, I think, I mean, just looking at like Dune Analytics and like how few users there actually are, and like thinking about like, all right, if you got like one popular game, you could really onboard the entirety of the existing crypto users today, which I think gets me super excited.
Yeah, oh, legit. I've literally been thinking about that in the same way. That's kind of how I was thinking about DMK. Like when I thought I was going to do like really well. It did do like really well for a bit, but the games that like do that and they're sustainable, like long term, I think are huge. I don't know if you've looked at like, what are the two popular ones? Like Illuvium, they haven't launched their like main game yet, but they have stuff in beta. Treeverse, I think, looks pretty cool. But yeah, there's stuff like that. We actually have like one of TCG's like portfolio companies, Curio. They're launching like an on-chain game, Treaty. That's like launching pretty soon. But there's a ton of different games. I think this year it's like this is the year after people have spent a year plus in development.
Yeah,
where
that's the hard thing.
Yeah,
it's actually like building up the game.
Yeah, like games take a long time to make, and crypto is like way too fast for like the pace, I think, of developers. So
I do agree. I'm excited for them to actually launch and see like which ones have like the sticking and staying power, because yeah, they could definitely bring a lot of users on the TCG side. Like you said, like you were interested also on like some of the social aspects. Is there anything that you guys have been following on that front that like you're excited about for this year?
Yeah, so like some of our portfolio companies, what's one of them? Like Medallion, I really like them. They're really cool. So they focus on like the intersection of like music artists and their fans. So it's creating like a dynamic relationship where like the fans are able to track like their entire history of like their fandom over time, and then interact with other fans socially through like a social media application, and like see who else was at this concert, and just like a whole interface for that. It's like, because typically it's hard for music artists to go directly to like, oh, who's my number one fan? Or like which person was at this concert? Like, how do I contact this specific subset of people? And blockchain and NFTs make that like a lot easier for like artists and fans to connect in that way. So that's like one of the teams that I like a lot.
The creative stuff is super exciting. I'm excited for that as well. I mean, there's not very many good avenues today. I think like, I mean, YouTube probably pays the best with like, I think 50% of like ad revenue is shared with creators, but other ones, I mean, Twitter, I think with Elon purchasing now is trying to do some of that, but I'm curious to see what Twitter does.
Yeah, dude, like another one of our portfolio companies is like Glass XYZ. So they're essentially that, like the decentralized YouTube. It's actually on Solana. But it's like creators get paid like for their videos, but it's directly person to person, instead of like the ways that these like huge corporations take such a large cut of everything. So that's how we're thinking through like a ton of these like consumer like interactions and relationships, and like how can blockchain and NFTs make these relationships a lot better, whether that be for creators or like fans or like all these different industries.
I love it. No, I'm definitely excited for that as well. It's needed. I feel like it will kind of become a more dominant genre in the future. So I'm trying to get ahead of it with all the podcasting stuff, but definitely agree.
Yeah, man. That's the way to go. I've been tracking your pod. I feel like when we met, you didn't have the pod.
No, I was at Tesla and ultimately decided to leave and spent a year just like doing research, and I felt like I felt like I knew a lot after just like being on crypto Twitter and like reading white papers for a year, but I didn't know how to be involved in like the community. And so I was always jealous of like the people that were good at Twitter, because I felt like there was the meme where like everybody's dancing, but that person's in the corner. I always felt like that. I always felt like that person in the corner, man. I was like, I know about blockchain, but like, how do I talk to people? And so I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to buy a podcast stuff and just like start talking with people. And at that Avalanche event, I met Kevin and convinced Kevin to come on the podcast, and him and I nerded out about Avalanche, and then it kind of like snowballed from there. And so, yeah, that was like at the very beginning.
Dude, no, it's been sick. I agree 100%. It's funny. Actually, like when we were at the conference, like my girl was with me. She was mad at me. She's like, who are you talking to for like 20 minutes? You said you were going to leave like 15 minutes ago. And I was like talking to you and this other guy about like Celestia and like AVAX, just like going on and on and on and on. Cause like that was like my first outside, like really in-person event where like I'm actually talking about crypto, and you just like you just go, 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 go. So it's definitely been cool, man. Like you had some great people on. It's been dope.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been fun. I mean, to be honest, like being able to talk with people like you, learn kind of like how you think about the markets, like from the trading aspect, like charts, like being able to talk with the builders directly, like it's been amazing. And definitely like recommend anybody try to do it. It's hard in the beginning, but once you get a little bit of momentum, it keeps going.
Yeah, for sure. It's been dope. Dope to see.
Appreciate it. Well, maybe kind of wrapping up the podcast for like 2023, like I guess like where do you think like things will kind of ultimately end up? Like, do you think, I mean, there's a bunch of, it's hard to predict these things, but I mean, is there any like, I would say like specific catalysts that you're looking for, or things that you think will kind of push the market forward? Or do you think it's going to kind of be history repeats itself like 2018, 2019?
Let me just say first, this is personal opinion.
Yes, of course.
Let me not get in trouble. But yeah, I think like this market is going to be similar to 2019 in the way that you have majors kind of rebound off their bottoms. And like you get some kind of sustained rally, but it's not necessarily all the way back to all-time highs. But in that, if you have like Bitcoin and Ethereum trading in a range and like chopping around during those like intervals of that like accumulation phase, that's when a lot of the innovation happens during these bear markets in crypto. Whether you want to call it like a bear or like in between bear and bull. But like that's when, so like in 2019, that's like when all the DeFi stuff got built out. Like that's when Chainlink had like its first major run. So I think that like this year, you're going to see similar things happen, whether that be like with LSDs, like Lido and stuff like that doing really well, or whether that be like new Cosmos app chain launching, like stuff like Say, and they do well. Or whether it's like rollups and they like find their like product market fit. And like there's like some like explosive application, like onboards a ton of users and it's like on a roll up. So I think like you're going to have a ton of innovation on the infrastructure side as well as like the application side. And it's really just going to be like who's actively looking for these things, and is like early to them. Cause you have to be very, very active in crypto. Like you want to be the person that's like on all the testnets. Like, oh, why are you testing this out? It's like, because I wanted to learn about it, not because I'm like looking for an airdrop and they told me I was going to get one. It's like the people who find this stuff early are the people who are doing all that, like reading through the docs on protocols, like when they're just talking on Twitter and don't necessarily have a product out yet. And like, that's also the way you build relationships with people in crypto, because it's like, it's rare for people to show that initiative before prices like confirm everybody's narrative or conviction. So like, even if you're just like a regular retail person, like on Twitter, I'd say like reach out to people, be active, do all that. Cause like there are definitely going to be opportunities this year, a lot more, I think, than we had last year, like to do well. So yeah.
Beautiful advice. I would definitely echo that. And then, so if people want to get in contact with you or TCG on like the investment front, or learn more about like what you're doing, what are the best places?
Best way is definitely Twitter. Like DM me on Twitter. My Telegram is my old so I'm kind of like less active on there. But yeah, DM on Twitter. I can give out my emails and all that information. If teams want to reach out, people want to reach out just to talk and chat stuff, I'm always down. So
cool. Well, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, D. Been a long time fan of your Twitter and of all your calls. So appreciate you sharing your wisdom and giving some of your thoughts on the market.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It's been fun.
Appreciate it.